So I wanted to make a video about a little bit more about EIDL and PPP because I've been getting a lot of questions and I've been having a lot of conversations about it. So I think there's still a lot of question and unsureness about these programs and whether or not you should take part in them. And so I wanted to take the time to answer some of those questions. So I wanted to just kind of run through some of the things that are part of the program. So first, PPP, it was extended. So the original date that you had to have that application in by was June 30th. So that time is gone. And so a lot of people might not realize that they can still apply. If you've been thinking about it, or if you're unsure if you should have applied or should not have applied, it's still a great amount of time to apply for that. So why might you apply for PPP? Well, one is to help with cash flow. Even if you do not have employees, you can still apply for it. The only thing that you have to have is a net income shown on your 2019 taxes, or if you started your business in January of 2020, you need to be able to show that your first quarter was profitable or that you expect to be profitable. So it has to be justified in some ways that you had a profit, because if you didn't have a profit, then you were basically operating at a loss anyways. And then you want to consider whether or not it's worth putting in that application, because I know that businesses fluctuate, and sometimes depending on how you do your taxes, it may or may not be something that you can apply for. Maybe you took a lot of expenses, or you did a 179 depreciation in 2019 where it really lowered that net income. You could arguably say that that shouldn't account for it, but they are looking at that information on your 2019 taxes. So you have to determine whether or not it's something that would make sense for you to claim. So you want to look at that and then consider that whatever your 2019 net income shows on your taxes, that number is divided by 12, so it's your average monthly income, and then you times 2.5 that number is what you would be eligible for the PPP. And so basically then you have 24 weeks after that point, or at least until the end of the year, to spend out those funds. And so most likely you'd be able to do that. If you have employees, then I would really encourage you to apply for PPP, because honestly, why not? It's funds that are available for you. We still don't know what the rest of the year is going to look like. So I would strongly recommend probably looking into applying for PPP. If you have your payroll records, you need to have your 941. And then if you want to have a combination of the payroll and then what you pay yourself, you would still need to have that 2019 net income. And the reason why you might do that is if you are an LLC, you wouldn't be paying yourself on payroll. So you're not getting a W-2, you're not on payroll, but that net income that your business still makes is part of that calculation. So if you have payroll, or if you don't have payroll, but you have a net income on your 2019 taxes, you can most certainly apply for PPP. And it's not a bad idea. The funds are available. The SBA is working very hard to make sure that the flexibility is there for pretty much everybody who applies for PPP to be covered, because they don't want those things to turn into loans. It costs a lot to manage loans, and so the SBA is trying to get the majority of all the PPP loans that are out there, especially the smaller ones, like for under, I think it's 150,000 or 500,000. Like if you were under that amount for a loan, which the majority of probably this audience and most businesses are going to be under that cap, you are able to apply for it, and most likely it's going to be forgiven, and it's going to be forgiven fairly easily. So then the next question is, well, if I didn't have a net income and I was showing a loss on my 2019 taxes, what do I do from there? Well, I'm glad you asked. So if you did have that, but you had a fairly good amount of gross revenue, that is what the EIDL is going to go off of. So if you haven't already filled out the application for the EIDL, I would strongly encourage you to go ahead and do that, because at the very least, you are eligible to get up to $10,000, $1,000 per employee worth of grant money from just applying for the EIDL. So even if it's just you, if you're a single member LLC and you're not technically on payroll, you can count yourself as one So when you go and fill out that application and ask you how many employees, put one down for yourself, and then you will automatically be eligible for at least $1,000. So why not take $1,000? It's $1,000. It's at least as of right now, it's forgivable. It's not something you have to pay back. And even at the worst case scenario, you might have to count it as income next year, just like most grants, you have to count those as income. $1,000 isn't going to change your tax liability very much. So I would strongly encourage you just to apply for the EIDL. Even if you were to get approved for the EIDL, you can make that determination as to whether or not you're going to accept that loan proposal, or if you're not going to accept that loan proposal. So that is something that's easily available for you. And again, you know, we are in this time where we don't know what the future is going to look like. I know I'm in Florida right now on vacation, but I know that Wisconsin is starting to, you know, put masks back on and starting to take more precautions. And I'm in Florida at family's house, so we haven't been out a whole lot, but I know that they're doing that down here as well. So we don't know what the next 6 months to a year even, or even 18 months from now is going to look like. And the most important thing right now is making sure you have cash flow. So still being mindful about where your money is going and where it's coming from, and having additional funds as a cushion isn't a bad thing. So even if you get this money, if you get the EIDL, if you get the PPP, the PPP is probably an exception because you do have to use that within a certain amount of time, but you don't want to just use it because you have it. Like, use it appropriately, use it with thoughtfulness, and it can be to your benefit. So if the EIDL of money is available to you, at least for that $1,000, go ahead and apply for that loan. And so, as I mentioned, if you had a net loss, you might be thinking, well, I can't apply for that. And that's not necessarily true. The EIDL is going to be going off of your gross revenue. So that's the money you make before any of those expenses are taken out. And you can get up to half of whatever that amount is, up to $150,000. So that means if you made $100,000 or you have $100,000 in gross revenue, you would be eligible for up to $50,000 worth of EIDL funds if you pass all of their other requirements, which they've lowered. So it's not completely contingent on your credit score or anything like that. They've lowered the requirements for the SBA loan. But that would be how they would calculate it. They would look at that number, they would look at your gross revenue, and then half of that, up to $150,000, is what you would be eligible to apply for. So I know a lot of business owners that got approved for that $150,000, and they have it sitting in their bank account because it's meant to be used for operational expenses, and there are some requirements and restrictions on how you can use those funds. But for the most part, it's very easy to use for operating expenses if there were to be some challenges. And again, we don't know what this is going to look like. The economic injury loans are generally used for times when something catastrophic happens. So like, like a weather catastrophe, there's a hurricane, or like the oil spill that happened several years ago, that was an economic disaster zone. And what happened with COVID was that every state basically was considered an economic disaster loan. And that's why these funds are available specifically for this. So it's to help with the extra cost or the loss of revenue or whatever might happen as a result of what's going on right now. But because this situation isn't over, and because we're not really sure what that's going to look like, it might not be bad, it might not be bad to apply for this loan. And the interest rate is super low. I think it's 3.85% over 30 years. So you will never get an interest rate that low for that amount of time. So if you've been thinking about getting a loan for operating costs, this might be a good time to do that, and a good opportunity to be able to do that. And also at the same time, plan for whatever may or may not happen as the future rolls out, and we still don't know what that's going to completely look like, because we're still living in this time. So I hope that helps answer some of the questions. Basically, to run down and recap, the PPP is available for business owners that have payroll but also do not have payroll. Your minimum requirement for that is to have a net income on your 2019 taxes, or in Q1 of 2020 if you started this year. If you've been in business for more than 2020, you're going to need to provide your 2019 taxes. So if you don't have those done, get those done. We are still taking some clients throughout the rest of the year. They will not be done by the 15th though, because I'm on vacation. But if you needed to still use those to apply, we could work on that for you. So please let me know if you need assistance with that. For the EIDL, it is going based off of your gross revenue. So it is not your net income. Your gross revenue is what you make before the expenses. So it's the opposite. You use your gross revenue amount to apply for the EIDL. Even if you apply for it and you don't get approved, you can get up to $10,000, $1,000 per employee just for applying. So even if you're like, there's no way on earth I'm going to get approved for this, still apply for it, because you can get that little bit of money. Count yourself as one employee when you apply for that. And apply for it. You have time to consider as to whether or not you're going to take the loan. So give yourself some time, look at your numbers, look at your plan for the rest of the year, look at how your year has been trending, despite the fact that this last quarter was a little bit crazy, to say the least. Look at what's been happening at your numbers, look at those things, and consider as to whether or not it makes sense for you to take the EIDL loan. My biggest thing with anything is that you won't know until you ask, right? And if you don't ask, it's an automatic no. So applying to these things is at least asking. It's asking for the help. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you do it thoughtfully, considerably, and with a plan. So make sure you do those things as we navigate through this. If you need help or if you have additional questions, please let me know. There's a lot of people that have questions. I've been getting a lot of different questions about these things. So I know that there's still people out there that have been considering or don't know a lot about what these relief options are. In addition to these things, there's been a number of grants that have been given, and I'm expecting there to be more as we continue through the rest of this year. So make sure that you are continuing to follow up. WEDC is a great resource, as well as SBDC. They will have the information on all these different programs and somebody to help you if you need somebody to help walk through it, other than me, of course, no. But I am available if you do need help, so please let me know. And if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat and I'll be happy to get back to you. Otherwise, keep plugging away. You know, this isn't over, and small business in general is a challenge all the time. So make sure you just continue to push through, make sure you have a plan, and make sure you're reviewing your numbers, because those are very important to the success of your business. So here for you. I hope you all are doing very well and enjoying the summer so far, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.